Hey guys, welcome back to Forever After Reacts. Today we'll be checking out how Batman would defeat each member of the Justice League. I saved this video on my other account that I use on my phone months and months and months ago, and I just never got around to it. But now's the day because I don't know why I just thought of it. It pops up every once in a while. I'm like, man, I need to do that, and now's the day I want to do it. I'm big into superhero stuff. Movie-wise, I've never read a comic in my entire life, so like, don't hate me for that. But like, I watch all the movies, and I love both Marvel and DC. Well, I would say equally. Like, they're both like polar opposites in the way the movies are like portrayed. So like, that's why I love them both. Like, if they were like trying to copy each other, then I don't even know how I'd feel. But I really like the DC because of like the darker tone and more serious, with Marvel being going downhill for me with too many laughs. But that's just me. Maybe the general consensus is kind of they're going downhill a little bit. I don't know. Regardless, this is Justice League DC. How is Batman going to defeat each member of the Justice League? Let's find out. WhatCulture.com, thank you.
Jules here for WhatCulture.com. And you know what? When you think of a hero most likely to have countless shady plans to defeat every other hero around, it's likely that the first and possibly only face that pops into your mind is going to be Batman. Few heroes have been shown on the printed page beating up or otherwise planning to beat up their allies and friends as much as the Dark Knight. And we've seen many times over the course of history that our boy Bruce has a plan to kill, maim, or generally defeat every single person that he's ever encountered in his life. Yeah, he might have a few trust issues. So what we're going to do today is actually take a look at these plans and figure out how he would actually take down all of his super friends if they turned into super pains in his ass. So let's take a look. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and this is how Batman would defeat each member of the Justice League. Number 10, Cyborg. While Cyborg is often on the outskirts of the Justice,
I'm assuming he would just kind of like throw an EMP out, and that'd kind of be the end of it, but I have no idea.
League, it's worth mentioning him here at the offset for one particular Dark Knight plan involving him that highlights just how far Bats is willing to go to make sure that he can defeat those with powers that could obliterate his human form. In Injustice, we see that Bruce has implanted Cyborg with a virus that turns out to come in plenty handy when Batman comes to stop him and the other members of the Justice League taking Gotham's supervillains to Superman's new max security facility. However, this virus becomes a much more worrying thing when Victor checks the date it was installed within him and realizes that Batman had placed the dominant threat inside him literally the first week they met, which means that there's a very real possibility that our universe's Bats has either done this also or has similar plans to take his shiny metal pal down should the need arise. Number 9,
you never know.
Green Arrow. Perhaps it's not totally fair to say that Green Arrow is
I'm assuming you guys have seen Green Arrow on CW, because I used to watch that every week when it came out back whenever cable TV was more of like a legit way of watching TV shows. But the Green Arrow on CW is awesome. Stephen Amell's portrayal of him is awesome. But again, I can't really go off of like what comics. I can only go off what I've seen TV wise. So I'm assuming that's Jon Stewart and Felicity. Is that her name? I can't remember. It's been so long since I've seen it. It's been so long since I've seen it.
Pushover when compared with the rest of the Justice League. After all, he does take countless supervillain crooks down on his own, and he's pretty much a prime example of peak human condition. However, when you stand him next to a dude who shoots laser beams out of his eyes, it's hard to measure up. This would explain one of the most inadvertently hilarious things that Batman has ever done. In deceased after Bruce has passed away after being attacked by some of his zombified former protégés, Damian recovers a memory file that contains some of his plans for taking down various threats, and Green Arrow is not on it. That's right, Batman didn't even make a specific plan to take Green Arrow down, presumably because he figured he could just go and beat him up the old school way if anything went wrong with him. Number 8,
both are like human only. Like they don't have superpowers other than, well, yeah, there's no superpowers. So I guess he would just take them straight on, mano y mano.
Man. Given how silly and
I don't know who Plastic
cartoonish
Man
the
is.
ability to be a human piece of elastic looks, it's easy to write Plastic Man off as a bit of a joke character, someone to bring a little more light-hearted banter to the table and not do much else aside from that. However, the fact that Plastic Man can take more or less any form via his plastic morphing means that he's a much more powerful threat than you might initially expect, which is evidenced in Dark Knight Metal, where he turns into a goddamn plastic war machine and absolutely kicks ass. It's clear that Batman considers Eel O'Brien a legit threat because when he does go for him, he does so with some seriously hardcore plans. Because Tower of Babel sees Bruce's plan against Plastic Man, and it is to coat him in liquid nitrogen and shatter him into a million teeny
I like
pieces.
it though.
Hilariously, this is again a merciful scheme, because the Batman who laughs, well, he takes it one step further, stretching him until he reached his breaking point, which is a fate that we could never experience, but imagining it alone feels pretty awful. Number 7.
I mean, we could do that. If you pull us so far, we're just gonna rip. So like, we don't stretch. Like, as I mean, the stretch we got, about this far. So as soon as we get that, we definitely feel that.
Martian Manhunter. Although Martian Manhunter is usually resigned to the sidelines for a weird amount of Justice League storylines, he's really the dark horse of the group. Not only is he capable of shape-shifting into dangerous forms, but his abilities are borderline boundless. He can turn invisible, regenerates at incredible speeds, and can use telepathy and telekinesis, and is resistant to most earthly poisons and diseases. In short, he's a bit of a secret powerhouse. But not to Batman, it seems, who had a pretty brutal plan for his green friend should he ever turn from heroism. Naturally, Martian Manhunter inherited his kind's weakness for fire, and thus Batman's plan involved nanites that would cause the poor alien's skin to permanently be set on fire. Not killing him, but obviously distracting him from anything but the agonizing pain of being on fire. This is only slightly less evil than the plan the Batman Who Laughs uses on his version of the hero, as we see him half exploded up on a wall, suggesting that Bats either used a substance that dissolved the Martian's structure into more of a liquid, or sabotaged his shape-shifting abilities somehow to the point where it straight up killed the poor guy. Maybe permanently being set on fire isn't so bad by comparison. Number 6. Green Lantern. With the powers of the Green Lantern so intrinsically linked to space politics, taking one of them out poses a unique issue: how to deal with them in a way that doesn't involve sabotaging the power source of any lanterns that haven't gone rogue. Interestingly, this appears to lead to a series of solutions that are much crueler than you might expect. Between blinding Green Lantern so that he can't make constructs with his powers, and stealing the ring's powers away with a Sinestro core ring, the schemes the Dark Knight has to neutralize one of his supposed allies are much more evil than many plans actual comic villains have made over the years. Number 5. Flash.
See, there's, so many variations of, like, I guess Batman that I never know. Like, I never know the smiley one that they keep talking about. I've never heard of that before, but that, even just the picture that they have, the comic of it, looks absolutely wild.
Flash is by no means the best fighter of the League. It's actually fair to say that he generally doesn't need to be, as when you're able to be fast enough to avoid any and all hits thrown your way, you could be as weak as a bowl of cereal left in milk overnight and still be able to win your fair share of fights. As such, he's a bit of a tricky one to try and plan to take down, but something being tricky has never stopped the Dark Knight before, and it sure as hell won't when it comes to taking down a potential threat. As such, the Bat crafted one or two tricks to place up his sleeve just in case he ever fell on the wrong side of any of the various speedsters who have held the mantle of the Flash. The most notable of these is, of course, that of the vibrating bullet from Tower of Babel, which, despite its silly name, would stick in the Flash's body due to the vibration's frequency and result in the poor hero having seizures. Oh, and he also has a lightning rod from the future that allows him to slow the Flash down too, so why exactly he also had the bullet is anyone's guess. Number 4, Aquaman. While Aquaman in most media is lauded as a bit of a dorky pushover, it is worth noting that, as funny as those jokes can be, he is still a legitimate threat. He's got some serious super strength, power over the oceans, and an ability to get all of those creepy sea creatures from the depth to attach themselves to your terrified face. Unfortunately for Aquaman, though, what he also does happen to be is just a guy with some very exploitable weaknesses, most crucially dehydration, which Batman has either planned to exploit or actively exploited throughout the years. In Tower of Babel, it's revealed that the Bats has developed an unusual strain of Scarecrow's fear toxin the Batman had tampered with so that when Aquaman was exposed to it, it would make him afraid of water, which obviously would create a pretty big problem for the lad. After being shamed for having created such a terrible thing to defeat his supposed friend, Batman would then go on to reveal some years later that he has a custom Justice Buster, which also came with magnesium carbonate. And what does this do? Well, it sucks all the moisture out of whatever it's shot at. Like perhaps, I don't know, Aquaman, which you'll note is exactly the same thing, but apparently is way more moral. Number 3, Wonder Woman. Unlike with Superman, a nice apple pie and a friendly smile might not be enough to soften Wonder Woman. She needs a mountain of blood and slain enemies, and those are slightly harder to come by. Hilariously, this desire for battle is exactly what Batman would use against her in the now infamous Tower of Babel storyline, which saw him dispose of her by trapping her in a simulation where she was locked in constant combat, thus making her too preoccupied to notice that she was basically stuck inside a big violent version of The Sims. This isn't the only route that Bats would likely take in order to fell his former comrade, however, as Justice League Doom saw him choose to poison Wonder Woman, which suggests a good old-fashioned dose of deadly substances would also be a way to fell her. Number 2, Superman. As may come as a surprise to a resounding nobody, Superman is one of the biggest potential threats to the DC universe were he to ever go rogue, which is kind of the trade-off for him usually being one of its most powerful defenders. That said, Supes is pretty good about being prepared for a situation like this, given that the guy pretty much knows that Batman definitely has something made of kryptonite in that very trusty utility belt of his at any given moment.
I've seen a little clip of like the animated show where he says something like he kind of turns and like hits his belt or something like that, and it shows that I don't know if he was like, what did you say? Or I don't know exactly what it was, but I can kind of vividly remember it in my head.
The only method the Dark Knight has cooked up in order to destroy his technically best friend, as several comics have seen Batman utilize the power of a red sun to weaken the Man of Steel until they're finally on an equal footing. Failing all of this, there's a good chance that one of the reasons that Bats is so darn chummy with the spaceman is so that he can appeal to his good nature in order to try and snap him out of any of his evil ways. In fact, you'd hope that this would be his first choice of action, instead of breaking out the kryptonite gun straight away. Calm it down, mate. And number 1, Batman. Bet you didn't see this one coming, did you? Well, unless you have Batman-like prediction abilities, of course, in which case...
I mean, after I said who's next, I was like, unless it's going to talk about Batman himself. I should have said it. Now I seem like a liar. But it was in my mind.
Well played, my friend. Perhaps the member of the Justice League that Batman is most concerned about having plans to defeat is, as strange as it might sound, himself.
I guess that is true. I guess like if he ever got like mind controlled, and like he would know how to stop everybody, but like he couldn't do anything to stop him from doing it. If that's where they're going. I don't know. After
all, for any other members of the League, he can be there to make sure that they get stopped in their tracks one way or another. But if he's brainwashed or goes rogue, there's not really an equivalent of him to do the same.
Yeah.
This is arguably one of the many reasons that he formed the Justice League, and crucially, is likely also a reason that he has so many sidekicks that he trains and then keeps them at arm's length, despite it being clear that he considers them as his own children. As much as Batman makes teams and alliances to take down incoming threats, there's no doubt that he recognizes that he could somehow become one of them, and so he's trusting them to incapacitate or kill him just as much as he trusts them to take down whatever other big bad comes their team's way. In short, it's likely Batman doesn't actually have trust issues, he's just very, very aware that his closest allies and friends are also the people who he will need to take him down if the time ever calls for it. And how that'll be done? I don't know, just make the bat pole really greasy and then he'll just fall down there by an accident, or just push him down some stairs. Maybe get Alfred to poison his toast. I don't know. And there we go, my friends. That is how Batman would defeat each member of the Justice League. I hope that you enjoyed that.
That is. I mean, I'm gonna just kind of pick that up too, as just thinking about it, because it's like scary and super smart at the same time. Like, you don't know if anyone could stop you, so like you train everyone, but you don't want to actually let them know, like, hey, this is how to get rid of me, because like then they could do it at any point. But then I don't know, because he is only human too, but he's super smart. It's a brain puzzle there that is quite complex, that I can't really put my finger on, because there's a bunch of what ifs they can go into, because again, it's a fake world to somebody. So awesome. I really liked getting to react to that and kind of picking out some of the things that like I've almost like seen a video, kind of using my brain power to figure out what some of the answers would have been to get rid of some of the characters. So I guess kind of a pat on the back for myself. But other DC Marvel videos that you guys want me to check out, leave them in the comments. I'll appreciate it. I am Forever After X, aka Nick, and hope you guys have a good day.